My name is Julia, and I did my project on mountain biking. In an article called Buffalo Soldiers on Bicycles, 1896 to 1897, by Carmen Weaver Hicks and George Hicks III, we learn that the first off-road bikes were seen in the late 1800s when an all-African American group of U.S. Army soldiers called the Buffalo Soldiers were led by Lieutenant James Moss, a United States Military Academy graduate in 1894 who finished last in his class and was assigned to the undesirable post in Montana. Unlike the off-road biking of today, Lieutenant Moss had an idea to experiment using the bicycles off-road for the practical use of travel. At the time, the soldiers had been using horses, but they could die or be killed, leaving the soldier without transportation. Lieutenant Moss used this experiment to gain points, since he started with a bad reputation. He led an expedition of 6 men on the first 126-mile round-trip ride to Lake McDonald, which was about 50 miles north of the fort. This trip was rough on the soldiers, but ultimately successful and completed in just 4 days. Since off-road bikes were first adopted and experimented with as a means for transportation by the military, women were not included in these activities in the beginning. Between 1894 and the 1970s, there existed cyclocrossing as a sport, which is more of a racing sport than an off-road type of event. Major companies didn't even start designing bikes specifically for their off-roading capabilities until the 1970s. One of the first major women to watch in mountain biking didn't come around until the early 1980s. Jackie Fallon, who knew the importance of making the sport accessible to women, founded the bike club called Women's Mountain Bike and Tea Society, also known as Wombats. According to the Marin Museum of Bicycling and Mountain Bike Hall of Fame, she also co-founded the National Off-Road Bicycle Association, also known as NORBA. The museum also lists Fallon as having reigned as the NORBA champion in 1983, 1984, and 1985. Fallon's work towards promoting mountain biking for women can certainly be attributed to the increasing popularity of the sport over the last half-century. In an article called The Women's Bike Report, published by BikeLeague.org, Carolyn Sapansky found that between 2003 and 2012, the number of women and girls participating in bicycling rose 20%. Like we learned from the Buffalo Soldier article, the very beginnings of off-road biking were by men, for men. Mountain biking is tough on the muscles. It develops your legs and core. According to the Marin Museum of Bicycling, the French Vélo Cross Club Parisien is a cyclo-cross group who rode off-road bikes in the winter to stay in shape in the off-season of cyclocross. The Women's Bike Report claims that in advocacy, policy, and the industry, women are still dramatically underrepresented in membership and leadership. One of the reasons that women reported not belonging to an advocacy group was simple: they had never been asked. Part of the reason that I had personally never mountain biked before was that I was afraid to. I didn't know any other women in the sport, and the thought of plummeting down a mountain with little control sounded more terrifying than rewarding. I knew plenty of men in the sport, including some who had severely injured themselves in the process. I own a mountain bike, but I had only ever used it as a road bike. For this activity, I asked my male friend, who enjoys biking in some nearby county parks, to take me with him and teach me a little bit about it. Like feminism's Fact and Fiction discusses about women who choose to pursue leisure experiences without having to confront the traditional expectations around femininity or gender identity, I want to participate in activities and experiences equally without having to confront the ideas about women doing these activities. I don't go out into the world trying to make a statement about everything that I do. Sometimes I just want to enjoy activities without it being a big deal. Since I went mountain biking with my friend, I didn't have to face this issue, and it was fine. I researched the Wombats Bike Club founded by Jackie Fallon, and I found out that she personally teaches clinics to young women to ride safely. The official website, wombats.org, lists information about it, including prices. She has these women meet her at her home in California, and they are truly for beginners. The what detail on her page about these clinics says that they are for honest-to-goddess beginners. One must know how to steer a bike, and that's about it. Courage not required, just the bike, ma'am. It's incredible that someone who paved the path for women in the sport is so willing to teach and spread the love of her sport to other women. This activity was hard on my body. I was a swimmer in high school and I also played water polo, so I have decent base muscle in my legs, but it's been years since I used them. It was challenging to bike uphill with the limitation of having low muscle mass in my thighs, and I was very sore the next day. I enjoyed the ride. It challenged me to push through even when it was painful. I felt strong when I was able to bike to certain heights, and I enjoyed the thrill of riding down quickly. I struggled to get up the hill, and I had to walk my bike a ways, but it was fun to have a little bit of adrenaline rush from the fear of plummeting towards the earth. I think that this activity could be rewarding for women because the more that you ride and practice, you can feel your body growing stronger and feel how it becomes easier to expand your limits when riding over time. I would participate in mountain biking again, but maybe in the summer when I could ride on a regular basis and get stronger and have a more rewarding experience with it.